It's always a different, it's always something different.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
It's like,
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to a special class. Today, we are going to be talking about feasibility studies, vacant land, purchase and sale agreements. And also we have a very special guest. We have Mike from Lot Launcher here to talk about what he does with him and his team and all the different things that they can do, things to look for, things to kind of be mindful about, to watch out for your clients, and to kind of keep everybody legal as well. So first things I want to do is share my screen, and we are going to go over vacant land purchase and sale agreements. It seems like every now and then clients, kind of get a bug of, you know what, can't find what I want. I want to build. All right. A lot of you shaking your heads. Yes, this is kind of typical. Kind of you hear what kind of happens. And, vacant land, I know a lot of times people, especially if you've never written up vacant land before, purchase sale agreement, it's pretty easy. I think it's a way easier than just residential. Main reason being is that you guys are not going to be the ones doing the feasibility study for clients, and you can't. So that's really the thing to take away of this class is like, you know what, don't be afraid of that. We can always help you guys through it too. But vacant land, same thing as far as filling in the purchase sale agreement. Sometimes people want to not have a deposit for earnest money until after maybe feasibility is approved. You might run into those types of situations. Usually your builders are the ones who are trying to find out if they can build on it, and they're trying to turn this up. That they're usually the ones that want to do that. Some people want to still try to use the earnest money promissory note. Promissory notes, I really don't see the need for them anymore. And the main reason is because we can choose now on the front page of our contracts on when the delivery dates happen. So you guys can always choose when that's going to happen. You could maybe, if you do have someone who wants to deposit the money, after approval of feasibility study, then what you can do is go ahead in the spot, just put, maybe type in using Authentisign and use the text tool and just type really small and just say, see form 34. Or you can even do, maybe from the side here and type it in here, see form 34 star and make an initials next to it. If you wanted to do something like that. Don't put a day here. I have seen this where someone puts 2 days, but then they put, later on they'll put earnest money deposits within 2 days of approval of feasibility study. That's kind of confusing. So don't do that. I would rather you just put something else as far as just saying see attached and not have an actual date, because now that this has changed. Then of course you're always putting closing agent. And I would do forfeiture of earnest money, still the same. Closing dates in vacant land is really going to determine on probably the project or something that, on what they're doing. If someone's trying to build a house and they're like, yeah, I want to build a house here. A good feasibility study. Mike, what do you guys like to see? On
how many days?
Yeah.
I want to see 30 days.
Yeah.
I just want to see 30. That means I deliver in 5 to 10 days. I allow the client the opportunity to ask questions. And then if grandma approaches them in a dream with their hair on fire and says, run, they still have it out.
Yeah. So don't go short, because you really need the time. I know some of your investors, maybe the ones that are kind of like the all-in-one, and they do their own feasibility, they do everything. Maybe they might be more comfortable with something shorter.
Is 30 days enough time
It should be.
to determine if the parcel is buildable?
Something.
Takes 2 to 3 months.
for restriction, what we call critical determination.
critical-
area. So
critical area, yeah, it really can come down to the property. So just be mindful about that when you're getting things set up, and it really, there is differences per county, per city,
Well,
wherever the land is or the
it's
property.
a lot like in between, like in a subdivision,
Mhm.
that's different than if you're on a 5 acre parcel in the middle of freaking nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah,
Is it?
I mean, I think so.
You can make that determination and how buildable it is within 30 days. When I sold land or listed land after 90 days, I usually wait for 90 days, and say we're gonna walk away. And so basically, you can always go back and ask for an extension if you need it. But otherwise you need to pretty much prioritize what you're gonna do and how you're gonna do it as part of sale in the first place, because most people just sit there and wait. And so many people haven't done what they're done in 30 days. You can get a pretty good idea if it's doable, and then if you need more time, then ask for more time.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, yeah, if it's like geotech where you need, like, if you need somebody to do a freaking mole study. I mean.
Soil
you
stability
Can't always get those
studies,
biologists out
geotech.
there in 30 days,
Do you need a biologist?
if there's potential of mold,
Why?
if you want to ensure that it's
I'm not picking
buildable.
on you. first
Sure,
of
sure,
all.
sure.
Not
But
picking on
I mean, if you're buying it with the intention that it will be buildable and you're buying in an area where there's moles or
How do you know that?
wetlands.
What's
I mean,
your
I hope as a realtor that you would know the area well enough to be informed on that.
Well,
I
there's,
I want you guys to be informed only to a level,
right.
because I don't want your clients coming to you like, you said, you're the expert. If anyone who took that class yesterday, with Mark, he was talking about being the source of the information, like where to find it, not the actual information, like, oh yeah, this is warranted by you. So really just be careful especially when you're talking about, vacant land.
Well, it's great with a grain of salt. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
this is just, but you have to call the county buyer and make sure,
Yeah, anytime you guys are calling on behalf of a client. Killing me. Sorry, Zoom people. One thing, like if you guys are calling on behalf of a client, please make sure you document who you talk to, their name, first and last name, okay, their phone number, contact info. And then when you send, an email, don't tell them over the phone. Send this stuff via email. Say, yes, I called, whatever, Pierce County Planning and Land Services Department. I talked to Steve Beck, and, here's his direct line, so you can confirm this information. This is what he told me, in an email. Make them confirm it. Don't be, yep, Steve said it's buildable, you're good. Which Steve? Oh, there's 3 Steves that work in this department. Stuff like that, just kind of really basics.
My managing broker told me it was buildable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
So, question, I mean, there are companies that do like the feasibility studies and they will go to the city with you and no.
He's here, he
I-
does feasibilities, but going to the city with you, I don't. you
Yeah,
don't
that's
typically
what
do
they
that with a
said.
client.
That's what they,
You,
I have that in an email.
you do the entire, à la carte, do the entire process and then hand it to them. Here's your report.
Yeah, so we'll get into more of that.
Yeah,
That's an option,
Got
right?
it.
That's an option for you.
Okay.
Our company's completely different than 99% of civil engineering companies, biologists, geologists, permitting companies, things like that. We're here to speed up and save you money.
but you have the people working for you, or you just go around those people?
Yep, both.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to talk to her.
so next thing, when it comes to vacant land purchase and sale agreements, closing date, you're gonna have to, obviously anticipate your feasibility. If you know for sure, it's, pretty basic and, 30 days, you should be fine for the feasibility. But then for closing, you want to make sure, it comes, to purchase and sale agreements. We got to talk about item A, right? The Jerry Maguire clause, because this is in boilerplate language of every one of our purchase and sale agreements. So don't forget, the agreement is all cash, liquid cash, unless otherwise specified in the agreement, right? So the client, if they are getting a loan or if they're getting hard money loan or what, any of that, you're gonna have to stipulate in the offer. So please don't forget asking the client, okay, you're planning to purchase this, is it all cash? If they say, yeah, it's cash, great. You gotta ask the follow-up question, great, is it in checkings or in savings? You just always have to say that, because then they're like, oh, actually, it's a hard money loan. Oh, actually, I'm gonna sell some stock. Oh, it's in bonds. Oh, it's in this. Oh, it's in that. Grandma's giving it to them, right? Gift funds. Unless they, if they don't have 100% of those funds in, liquid checkings or savings, you're gonna have to add a different document. So same thing with vacant land is, anything else, condos, purchase and sale agreements. Earnest money amounts. Typically, we're still seeing 1%, this kind of about still kind of in the range, but depends on the land, depends on how strongly you want to make the offer. Other thing about subdivision, the property must be subdivided before a date, is not required to be subdivided. It's probably pretty rare that I'm seeing these come through, that it's going to be subdivided before a certain timeline, unless someone's buying an entire plat and then it's already in preliminary plat approval and they know a date. And if you basically know a date in which the lot's going to be finalized, then you would be using this to put the date. Otherwise, it's going to be not required to be subdivided. And then feasibility contingency expiration date is days after mutual acceptance or other. Sometimes people will go ahead and put, check here, and they'll put the 30 days after mutual, or they say other, and you would click other and say see attached 35F. You should be using a 35F in every one of your vacant land deals, and the 22D like that. Should be in every deal anyway, because you're not gonna obviously go measure the land and say, yep, it's exactly 1.25 acres. Or encroachments or any of that other garbage, to deal with. So you should be always using that anyway. But the feasibility contingency addendum is pretty plain and simple, and it does have some cool things in there. We'll go ahead and just read through this. Buyer shall verify within. So again, we said good idea is probably 30 days after mutual acceptance, the feasibility contingency expiration date, suitability of the property for buyer's intended purpose, including but not limited to whether the property can be platted, developed, and or built on now or in the future, and what it will cost to do this. This feasibility contingency shall conclusively be deemed waived unless buyer gives notice of disapproval on or before the feasibility contingency expiration date. If buyer gives a timely notice of disapproval, then this agreement shall terminate and the earnest money shall be refunded to buyer. Buyer should not rely on any oral statements concerning feasibility made by the seller, listing broker, or buyer broker. Buyer should inquire at the city or county and water, sewer, or other special districts in which the property is located. Buyer's inquiry shall include but not be limited to building, or development, moratoria applicable to or being considered for the property, any special building requirements, including setbacks, height limits, or restrictions on where buildings may be constructed on the property, whether the property is affected by a flood zone, wetlands, shorelands, or other environmentally sensitive area, road, school, fire, and any other growth mitigation or impact fees that must be paid. The procedure and length of time necessary to obtain plat approval and or building permit, sufficient water, sewer, and utility, and any services, connection charges, and any other charges that must be paid. Buyer and buyer's agents, representatives, consultants, architects, engineers shall have the right from time to time during the feasibility contingency to enter onto the property and to conduct any test or studies the buyer may need to ascertain the condition and suitability of the property for buyer's intended purpose. Buyer shall restore the property and all improvements on the property to the same condition they were in prior to the inspection. Buyer shall be responsible for any damages resulting from any inspection of the property performed on buyer's behalf. And the last is a default agreement terminated note if notice of satisfaction not timely provided. I would say you should check this box every time. So that puts all the weight on you and the buyer to perform and give the notice of approval or the notice that you need an extension before the date. So if checked, this agreement shall terminate and the buyer shall receive a refund of the earnest money unless buyer gives notice to seller on or before the feasibility contingency expiration date that the property is suitable for buyer's intended purpose. So there is the feasibility contingency addendum. Questions about that?
I love it. Sorry.
Gotta have it.
I love this. Good one. A lot of people just don't even know it exists.
Yeah. Definitely should have that every time. If you're gonna use it, you could also say see attached, and put see attached form 35F. Now, in order to give the approval for your feasibility, down to the feasibility contingency, and then the 90P is the actual feasibility contingency notice for either the approval or disapproval. So this is what will have to be sent by the deadline. So if you do 30 days, it's 30 days, from mutual. So commencing day, that begins the next day, right? You get mutual today on the 14th. That means the 15th is day one. You're counting weekends and holidays, but you can't land on a weekend and holiday for the 30 days. But make sure like you put in a reminder in either your phone, set a reminder using your Outlook calendar, or if you're using the transaction coordinator, that they're usually really good about putting these dates on when these deadlines are up by. So the first box is the notice of termination, feasibility, contingency, disapproval. Buyer disapproves the results of a feasibility study of the property, elects to terminate the agreement, and demands the return of the earnest money. So you would mark this box, buyers would sign, send along a form 50 to go ahead and get the return of the earnest money from escrow. Now, if the buyer's approving, it's the same thing. We got the notice of satisfaction, feasibility contingency approval. Buyer approves the results of the feasibility study of the property and elects to proceed with the transaction on the terms in the agreement. So meaning it's going to continue, you're going to close, right? The next thing would be closing. So depending on they're getting a loan, which nowadays with vacant land is definitely, a little bit more stuff that involved, from banks. So if you're getting a full package of a building loan to include the land and the building package and all that stuff, it's a lot more involved and harder to get. I'm hearing they're like 25 to 30% down. That's usually what they want. And PC Bank, or not PC Bank, they're way gone. That's a blast from the past. They would have gave you money in a heartbeat.
Of any bank, I know you'd need like at least 50% down, but any loans you can get on vacant land without being construction?
Oh,
You don't need to.
Not for construction though, for just to hold, not.
just to buy.
WAFD, what about
WAFD?
Timberland?
Washington Federal?
Federal.
That's what I always tell
Yeah,
people.
WAFD.
US Bank has done, so we see like 30-35%.
Yeah,
You can get a 0 down land loan right now from USDA.
if it's in the area, yeah,
You can.
in the
You
mountain.
can get a 5% on just raw land. There are programs out there that can help people with down payment assistance or just having a low down payment. So there are options out there for you.
Do you have a list of those options then?
Absolutely.
Would that be on your website or can you send it to us?
So we have a little button that says ask an expert. You say, I'm having finance issues. I need low down payment. We will send you a list in your area of loan officers who can help you do that program.
All right, let's see if there's anything else. last, I think that was it.
Covering.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for
Don't let it.
purchase and sale. Anything else? Yeah, don't let it expire. You need to extend. You're trying to do the extensions and stuff, you know, when you need it, as soon as you know. You know, if you're in 30 days and they're like, oh, great, now this is gonna need some kind of probably engineering and it's gonna need some giant retaining wall and stuff according to the city, or you know, you might have to get more time. Just be really good about getting that extension as soon as you know, as soon as you know you're gonna need it, you know, way more time. All right, questions before I go ahead and hand it over to Mike? I'm gonna stop my share. All right, that is all yours, Mike.
Okay, can you go to my website?
Yeah.
Is that possible for it?
Now, yeah,
And then tell me where the camera's pointing.
it goes anywhere, wherever you move, it's gonna
So I'll
follow you.
stand up front just for people, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm taking on my jacket because I'm extremely handsome and I want to make sure that. Now it's hot. So, lot launcher is, as most careers, made from necessity, to be honest with you. I was dating a gal and she said, let's build a house because we can't find anything, right? And so I said, yeah, let's do it. I was a lender, I did construction lending for almost 2 decades. Eric and I have known each other for maybe 1.5 years, 2 years, just something like that, right? So back a few years. And I used to call in his office all the time, constantly. And I had some great relationships with some brokers in there and some other offices. So that was kind of my background. And then my girlfriend thought, okay, you should be able to figure this out. Is this a buildable piece of property? How much is it going to cost to develop? Let's go find a house and let's build, right? So kind of those 3 pieces, we got the land, we got the development, and then we got the building. And man, talk about some humble pie, right? I could get the loan. No idea how to do feasibility, anything like that. And I even got on back then, we still had Google. Okay, I'm not that old, you know, but to search feasibility, I get a perk test. Does that tell me something's buildable? They don't even call it a perk test anymore. It's soil analysis. Okay. I get a geotechnical analysis. I can get a flood determination letter. I can get a water availability. All of these things, all the things that we just went through on that 35, right? So all at the bottom where it says, go to the county, go do this, and this, fire to verify, blah, 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 blah. That's what I was going off of. I didn't have any idea. And then I had to say, okay, now if something is buildable, how much is it going to cost to develop? Because that was a part of the loan. That was the piece that I didn't understand. And so we became incredibly frustrated and then got married. That was always a good do it that way. But luckily it was my second marriage, so I learned. And so I was doing lending and started really understanding the permitting process and what makes a property buildable and not. And the reason I did that was self-serving because I wanted more construction loans, right? Back then it was like, bring me your permits, your plans and specs, and we'll get this done for you. Okay. And then the clients would say, well, who can help me with feasibility and who can help me get, you know, my permits? And I'd say, your broker. Right? And they'd say, the broker would call me, right? So why are you telling them to do that? I'm not gonna do that for them. And say, okay, well, I'll learn how to do it. So I learned how to do it. It took me quite a while. And then I had a friend who was a construction, and he said, are you doing all these are you running permits and getting things like that? You're getting them faster than most. And I said, well, yeah, I'm doing that. They said, how much are you charging? And I said, well, I work for a bank. I can't charge for that. They said, well, do you know how much normally people will do? And I said, well, I hate lending, so I'm out of here. I'm doing that. That sounds great, right? And so lot launcher started and a car ride down to Centralia to help my 9-year-old get over his train fix. He really, you know, it's like crack to them. They start shaking and they got to get the trains, you know, trains, cars, things like that. But I love land. And so my son was talking about trains, but his next fix was rocket ships. So that's why I named the company Lot Launcher. I wanted it to have nothing to do with when you go on a civil engineering or you go on a land page and it's just topographical maps. I want nothing to do with that. Because I didn't want to have one specialty. I understood from the perspective of a buyer, because that's why we started the company. I need all of these other little pieces in order to understand the transaction completely. But did it mean that I had to be a biologist or a geologist or a surveyor? It didn't mean that. It just meant that I had to understand the process and then have people in place that can help me with those types of things, okay? So that's our goal. Lot Launcher's primary goal is to help people build homes and subdivide land, okay? And we do it in two ways. One is feasibility, the other is project management. Okay, project management happens after you purchase the land, they want to build a house. I need to go get permits for them. I need to help them with owner responsible items, right? Things like flat work, paint, things that are not in a contract from a builder's perspective, okay? Luckily, we're in 4 states now, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Hawaii. We do over 1,000 feasibilities a year, okay? We manage about 350 projects a year.
Are you on all the islands in Hawaii?
We are. Well, I'm not right now. I'm physically not. I wish I was, right? Yeah, so I should back up. I am not on native islands. Okay, so Nihu, not on it, right? So those types of things. So I want to be very, what now?
Okay.
No, is the 100% answer that you're looking for.
Sure.
We do a ton of pro bono work for Maui County, which includes Molokai. And when I say pro bono work, that's what my lawyers call it. When they say free, we don't like free in the business because that doesn't keep us employed. Okay. But that being said, we are in Hawaii.
That's cool to know you're,
Yeah.
that's cool to know you're in Hawaii.
Yeah, so growing the company, 4 different states, having a standard operating procedure that how we can help you. So our goal again is to help those clients. And we're really broker focused. So if you go to our website, scroll up just slightly. We have these refer a client, get on the schedule, purchase your feasibility, ask an expert. Okay, this is all free. Click, 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 right? You have any questions about land? But we're not just a land company. If you have an existing home, you want to know whether or not you can build a DADU in the back. That covers under feasibility. Okay. We even have an automated tool for that coming out. So that's kind of cool. Purchase your feasibility. I do not want you purchasing a feasibility before you have a few things going on. Okay. Number one, client says, I'm looking to, I want to build something like that or subdivide. Have a consultation with us. It's completely free. Let's talk about expectations moving forward. Then at that point, we're going to answer 3 questions. Do I still want to do this? Is it in the budget? And have I found a property that's in the right location where I want to live or I want to accomplish what I want, right? You can answer all 3 of those correctly. We say, congratulations, we're going to talk to your broker so they can make an offer on that piece of property. So we're speeding up the transaction, right? Make sure that you have a 30-day feasibility contingency. We typically provide feasibilities or land use determinations within 5, 10, or 15 days. I'd like to have 30, like I said earlier, so that you can ask questions and we can clarify and we can move forward and we can allow grandma to seep into your internal mechanism here and say, run, this is scary, right? My dead grandma talks to me all the time in dreams. She says, run, this is scary, right? So I love grandma, but she's wrong most of the time. So refer a client or friend. How do I get my client in contact with your office, Mike? That's it. Okay, it opens a form, says who you are and that you authorize us to contact your client and that you want to know what we're doing and want us to communicate with you what's going on. Okay, so early in the process, just get them involved, right? Let's get that conversation about feasibility. Let's get that conversation about building land or subdividing so we can get good expectations so we can allow you to do what you do best. Okay, we can also accomplish a few things with that. We can pre-qualify them. Okay, on the back of my car right now, if you go downstairs, the license plate says Dream Crusher. Okay, you laugh because you know me for a while. I'm not really a confident person most of the time. I fake it up here. I really rely a lot on data. Okay, this company relies a lot on data, not data that I look in the computer all the time. That's part of it. Okay, that's part of feasibility. That's more having to do with buildability than feasibility. Okay, buildability is, can I build it here? What does the jurisdiction say? Does it support me? Okay, what are the setbacks? Where are the buffers? Where are the critical areas? Open space corridors, easements, those types of documented things, okay? And then feasibility has a lot to do with experience, or it used to solely have a lot to do with experience, but we've developed an algorithm over the last 10 years that actually is about 4.7% of margin of error based on our projects that we manage on a weekly, daily basis. How much a gross estimate to develop from existing condition to ready for foundation. Takes me 40 milliseconds to run that. Okay, it's based on needs, based on topography, it's based on critical areas, it's based on a lot of different things, okay? So not only are we providing, yes, the jurisdiction says this is buildable, here's how much it's gonna cost to develop, here's how long it's gonna take, here's a conceptual site plan, professionally drafted. Not me going on the county website, GIS, and then drawing. I'm the worst. It's my 9-year-old can do better. Okay, drawing and little, driveway, things like that. So we got a site plan, so you can explain to your friends and family what you're going to do, and also explain to your contractors, okay, or your biologist or geologist or whoever we need to talk to about what you want. The last thing I want is you to hire someone to do, or a client to hire someone to do a percolation test, and we call that soil analysis now, and then dig the holes where you want the house. This is silly, right? Okay, so we want identifying about scope. That's what we're trying to do. And then on top of that, we're providing prima facie evidence. Okay, prima facie is before you have physical evidence. This is prima facie, okay, on face value. Face value, that's where that comes from. So one of the tools that we use to, when we know that we're going to have a septic system, especially in King County. Okay, if I have over 5 acres, I've got to have 18 inches of soil, absorbable soil to put in a septic system. 18 inches. It's under 5 acres, I have to have 12. Okay. I want to know where the water table is. That's really what I'm searching. So Enumclaw, water table really high. Okay, plateaus really high because it's just a big lake. Basically, that drain. Can I put a septic system if I have the water table within the 6 to 8 inches? No. Do I need someone to go dig in the ground and pay them $1,200, even though they're necessary, and I like them? Is that a risk that I can accurately describe to the client and allow them the opportunity to make a decision for themselves, whether they want to do that? Okay, I'm trying to provide them evidence that, hey, I think that this is buildable and then also can support an on-site sewer. So the next step is a septic design, okay, do a percolation test, soil analysis. So we're explaining the process. The feasibility also includes roadmap to completion, okay? Remember, I was really good at permitting. Evidently not many people are. I didn't know that. So I feel very, very good about myself, right? So it's adding to my professionalism, okay? So we got a roadmap to complete project completion, okay? Tells you how to get your permits, how to go through it. We've got costs, okay? Site development calculation, we call that. We've got a professionally drafted site plan, okay? And then now we're actually telling in the report, if I were in your client's shoes, would I buy the property? That's something you guys can do. I do not recommend you do, okay? So based on our experience, based on the data, based on the jurisdiction, can we accomplish what you want to accomplish with this property? That's what we're looking to do, okay? Any questions about what I just said?
Would you
No.
do highest and best use?
Yeah, so what is highest and best use to you?
No, well, no, I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Property has house on it, it can be subdivided. So do you put an ADU in the back or do you just dump it on, build 2 4-story units? And I can do, I would back up the math, sure, but.
Sure, yeah.
Could you say, this is the highest best use, or do you do that, or you say you can build, or do we have to ask, can you build this?
So within the feasibility, to answer the question, within the feasibility, you're talking about land use, Okay,
Right.
so when we say highest and best use, it doesn't necessarily mean highest and best use for me or you, or it means what is land, what can this land be developed into? Okay. When we talk about subdividing, we're talking about density calculations. Okay, so we see a lot in rural R5, right? It doesn't, it may mean residential in some areas, but in rural areas, it means rural 5. Okay, 5 dwelling units per acre. Okay, so that means if I have 10 acres. Okay, so, or 1 dwelling unit per 5 acre, rather, I said that wrong. So if I have 10 acres, then I can put 2, right, dwelling, like subdivide it into 2 parcels. Okay, doesn't mean that I can just put 2 dwelling units down, right? So Washington State says you can do a DADU, okay? You can do your primary residence, you gotta have that, okay, in order to do DADU, otherwise it's just housing, right? Okay. Here's the secret. Okay, I'm about to blow your mind, or maybe not. Every piece of property is buildable in Washington State. Every single property is buildable in Washington State,
Even if it has wetlands?
even if it has well. Okay? What's buildable? That's the real question, right? That's what we're getting at. So under a land use category, we have zoning, okay, then we have land use. That tells you a single family detached, tells you duplex, then it goes into civic uses, then it goes industrial uses, then it goes into commercial uses, okay? Then underneath, you know, that's what it's saying, those houses or family care facility or those types of things. So you're asking highest and best use, we provide a land use category that says permitted, the following uses are permitted within, for this piece of property, okay? And this is a density calculation, okay? How many parcels can you get out of this piece of property? That's all included in the feasibility. Yep, yeah. How do we do that? It's in the code, okay? When you, go ahead, sorry.
Do you do rezoning? Like if somebody wants to increase,
Yep.
especially what's going on in these days, it would increase the density of like from R4 to R6 on land or R.
Right, so typically that's done through a comprehensive plan amendment, okay? So it's an administrative process that is 100% political, by the way. So you guys, if you live in an area that has a community planned area, you can go ahead and get on the land use committee, sometimes they call it commissions, sometimes it's called committee, and you can effectively say whether or not something can be rezoned or not. Now, within the code, it says it can be rezoned if you do this, this, and this, okay, existing conditions, right? One of the main conditions for rezoning is, I want to make this an R6. It's currently an R5. Does the boundary, is it on a boundary, is a neighboring property have the zoning that I want? That's one of the first conditions, okay? And then if you suffice the other conditions, utilities are typically included in there, okay? Then we make an application for rezone, comprehensive plan amendment. And that typically is a process that takes at least a year, okay? So it's kind of like subdividing, okay? Pre-plat takes, 8-9 months, then we have final, and so we're like 18 months out, right? Okay, depending on where it is. But yeah, it's a great question. A number of different ways. Now, I've seen properties that are zone one thing in the back, it's commercial property, and it's zone another in the front, but you can only gain access to the back if you go through the front. So the code says I have to do a comprehensive plan amendment. And I say, hello, so-and-so, who's the chair of that area. This makes no sense. Why can't we just go and do an administrative change to that? And they say, well, that's what we can do, a conditional use permit or a temporary use permit, and you're done. So we're educating them on, hey, why this makes sense, okay? So typically it's a higher level conversation. So that's one way we can get it done faster if it's a very specific instance.
Did you have within there some like fees, like what it would cost, or is that just such a variable? So
Yes,
like,
you
somebody
can,
has land and they're kind of like, here's kind of what's gonna, so I can give them and send them to back these.
yeah, so can you go up to the shop tab? please? So that's a good question. We talked about comprehensive plan amendments, things like that. It's a wide, it's based on how much time we think this is gonna take and how much involvement, okay? All of our products are not existing right now. Is it 11 o'clock? Yeah. Almost. Okay, 19 minutes, everything will be up because our IT guys like to screw with me.
There you go.
Okay, so we can go down here. All our prices are standardized, okay? We have a product for sellers. We have a product for buyers. How about that? This means that I won't die in the next 2 years. My company will not go under, right? Because if I was just focused on buyers, I'd be in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, right? Land use determinations. I have a big piece of property. I want to subdivide it. How do I do it? How much is it gonna cost? What's the process? That's this. It's a feasibility for that, okay? A lot of times clients approach me and they say, I want to buy this piece of land, I want to build a home, and I want to subdivide. Okay. That's this. We include this for free. Okay. To answer your question on the cost. Yeah, permit only services, you see that, $8,700. All this, so if you went and got a feasibility and then you wanted to go to permit services, the money that you spent here gets credited towards this.
Oh, cool.
We want to increase people building. Okay, I want you to make money. Project management, subdivision, boundary, read more, right? All that's, so I just don't know how much it's gonna take to get it done, okay? I'm managing projects 24 to 36 months, typically on a subdivision. But
So it tax, it, lots about it, tax sale, which I run across that.
Mhm.
Do you know where you can find financing for those lots? Because usually what I hear from the title companies, you gotta wait 10 years before it becomes seasoned, so somebody can't come back after they buy a tax sale.
it's true. Yeah, hard money.
That one.
Hard money's not like a bad thing to me, like I don't think of it as bad. I think, oh God, it's expensive. Right,
Well, they're usually cheaper lots.
yeah, instead of walking, I shuffle after I do hard money, right? You go. And then, so if somebody wants me to manage their house being built, that's a 24-month process, guys. Permitting, reviewing all contracts for general contractors or builders, the whole 9 yards. Remember, anything you buy gets credited.
Does that cover the cost of the actual permit?
No, are you crazy?
I'm just asking,
I don't
man.
think you are, because you asked very good
I'm
questions.
just
I like you.
That's a good question.
I like your questions, okay? So you can actually go on our feasibility up here. Click on the rocket. Remember my 9-year-old son who loves rockets, right? Different, okay? 3, 2, 1, launch, okay? Starting to get the marketing behind all this. There's some feeling behind it, okay? What we want to do is comprehensive feasibility covered. Some products that are deliverable, coordination for perk tests. I'm not paying for a perk test. I'm not going to include it in my cost if it's not necessary. So we'll coordinate that. So we'll provide 3 contracts for people we know, like, and trust in your area that can perform this service. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you said all land is buildable.
Mhm.
So given what you're talking about, the inflow on the water table,
Mhm.
so how would you do that? You're talking more about a pressure system or a mound system?
No, I'm just saying it's buildable. You can put a pad for your RV and you can visit
Yeah.
180 days out of the year,
Okay,
right? How's it buildable, right?
yeah.
Also DADUs, King County, if it's zone forested, you still have residential use. But I can't put a DADU on forest land. Just can't. It's in the code. I don't know how the hell they get around it. Because the law literally says, you're supposed to do this, okay? But they just don't want somebody to build a house that's adjacent to forest land that's just gonna continually be forested. Okay, it's not, they're worried about safety at that point. Okay, but does it mean that you can't do it? You can build a house there, yeah, but they're only on a certain amount of acreage. So you have to be very careful how you do it. Okay. Quite.
So do you have like different municipalities with different kind of regulations? Because it always varies, and especially when I went to Pierce County, it was amazing. Every time I go try, they say, well, no, this is this district and there are different rules, and it's easier in some ways in King County. So I was just wondering, like, because I've always wondered about that, like, what are the city limits of Renton, Canton, you know, the different cities, and you get an unincorporated King County or an unincorporated Pierce
Yeah.
County.
So the feasibility actually forces us to look at those codes, cite those codes, and then provide evidence of how we cited those codes. It's all different.
Right.
So our feasibility team, we have a research team and we have a feasibility team. Our research team that provides evidence to support, so jurisdiction due diligence, right? And provides the code. They are not allowed to have buttons on their computer to go ahead and go back, you know, you hear what I'm saying here? Just because they searched it once, doesn't mean there's not a new ordinance, okay? Ordinances are typically done in February. Okay, so I'm like, right now I'm reading all the time, I'm falling asleep on the toilet, hiding from my family, not necessarily using the bathroom, I'm just sleeping in it, okay? Ultimately, it's my responsibility. Ultimately, it's on my insurance if I screw up, okay? It's a big deal to me. Because I'm not, my goal is to help people. It's not to help them just enough to where I can get away with telling them this is buildable or not. That's not the point. Okay, good question. Good.
I just want to be sure I understand
No.
the services you're offering. So say, clients like, I want to buy this $100,000 piece of vacant land, whatever, wherever it is. Say, okay, we got to do the feasibility. Let's hire lot launcher. So they hire you, and then with your existing relationships and familiarity with all the crap that needs to be done, you are able to get it done quicker, easier, like all of that. So, but the cost of the actual, county people going out to the parcel to do whatever you determine they have to do,
Yeah.
that cost is the cost.
So
and
we
that would be
explain
on
risk, right?
top of what
Yeah.
your cost would be.
Yeah, yes, is the
Okay.
answer. So we explain risk. So I'm a recovering lender, I call it. Okay, I go to 12-step meetings for it. Okay. The reason I say that is because I'm not a biologist, I'm not a geologist. And if I was, I wouldn't be doing this. Okay. When we have a cardiac issue, I'm not going to an ear, nose, and throat person. Okay, when I have a geology issue, a steep slope over 30 degrees, I'm going to a geologist. Okay. But in order to get there, I have to explain accurately to a client why this is a hazard. Okay, so we talked about gophers earlier. Okay, Thurston County, they love gophers, they love frogs, they love gophers, they love trees. Those guys love everything. King County, critical area determination, right? Can't do anything until I have that. Okay. Pierce County, we have revere areas and then we have hazards that are actually documented. So how do we know all these different things? Well, partly is because of our experience, right? But what I'm doing in a feasibility is I'm verifying buildability. And then I'm providing the information to allow a client to move forward to build the house or subdivide or do whatever they want. What's the likelihood of success here? Okay, would I buy this property knowing this scope? Does the jurisdiction support me? That is a different question. Okay, back in the day, we used to have time to go to a geologist, go to a biologist, go do a wetlands variance. Okay, the number one thing that slows down projects, especially building, okay, is environmental issues, wetlands, flood zone. Okay, those types of things. It has no longer, unless you guys want to put in on your feasibility contingency that it's 6 months or 8 months, and that a seller is willing to allow that, it's just not a reasonable expectation anymore. So now I have to risk profile. Is this an issue? If it is an issue, is it a big issue or is it a little issue? Does it impact my ability to develop? And in what way? Okay. And Mr. Customer, Miss Customer, whoever you are, would you like us to go further? Okay. If you say this is 90% wetlands and I say, no, it isn't. Let's figure it out. Let's have our biologists go out and do a reconnaissance. They'll identify wetlands. Okay. They're not going to delineate. That's not part of that process. It's just reconnaissance. Okay. So you're gonna say, yes, it's wetlands, it's category 2, this is your buffer and setbacks. I can actually find those things without having a biologist go out there. Okay,
So you're certainly gonna save the client time and energy and all that.
you too. I'm gonna say,
Sure,
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
sure, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
You, the broker and the client, you're gonna
Yeah.
save us time and energy, but potentially also save money by just flat out saying, you don't even need to hire this guy, because I can tell you right now, it's not what you want it to be.
Yeah, so that's great point. So what is the process? Call us early when people have questions. I want you selling property, land, houses. I don't, my humble opinion is, I don't, even if you're an absolute expert, I want you to have volume, transactional volume. That's, I want you to help people. And I view that as your job. That's what you guys tell me. My job is to help your clients assess risk, and then determine the likelihood of success for their scope and tell them how much it's gonna cost in the process to do so. It's really simple. It's not hard. And do it within a period of time. Okay, right? Lenders, Eric, I don't know if did we ever do transaction? Do you recall how many transactions?
I don't.
Yeah, I was late on 1% of all my loans. Pretty amazing. That 1% freaking hates me, man. Never will send me another report. Never. And it was just 1% of all of my loans. Almost 15 years. 1%. People will never refer me. You're the same way with feasibility, guys. 1%. Didn't like what I did, didn't find value in it. Okay. We have those clients. Okay. I bought this, then I didn't move forward with buying the land. If you buy feasibility from us or your client us, walks away for any reason, the next feasibility is on us. Look at that look. I got a positive look. I got a positive look. Okay. That makes sense, right? Because our goal is to help people build or develop land. Our goal is not to say, this isn't a good fit for you. Make sure you pay us again.
What if somebody moves forward on the land that you said is buildable and then it's not? I mean, the home inspectors just give you the money back on your shoddy inspection. Just curious.
There's no refunds. There's no cancellation.
No guarantees.
I can't guarantee a permit. I'm not applying for anything. Right? It even says in there, not a guarantee of permit. I have to put that because the lawyers. And plus it's a reasonable expectation. People don't expect me to guarantee permits.
Well, the county and city can change anything on a
Sure,
dime if
sure,
they want to.
Well, and
That's definitely,
if something is
An
determined to
issue.
be buildable today, but you don't want to build for 10 years, in 10 years,
Yeah.
who freaking knows?
So guidelines all will change.
They do,
Yeah.
but not drastically. You'd be really surprised at how they're really not drastically changing. I mean, we're getting some changes because people want them, right? So DADUs, those types of things, density, those types of things. We see social issues behind that. So whatever profile you're on politically, we're seeing changes. Those are faster, okay?
So what initial information can the client expect?
That isn't within this.
So,
I developed it, man, because I didn't know what to expect, so.
no, what
I've
I
never
mean
had
is like
anybody
I
do
send
that.
you an address 833 135th Street.
Well, it doesn't have an address because it's raw land, by the way.
Well, no, because if you're saying, because can you use it for ADU or?
Oh, yeah, if you want to do an ADU.
Or I want to do a split lot, you already know this.
So what is your question?
I guess my question it would be like, what information do you initial, or say it's raw land, what initial information, here's parcel number X, Y, Z.
Mhm.
Are you just saying, yeah, this is something we can work on, and giving them basic information?
So you're asking, is it buildable or subdividable? You're asking the first thing that a client would ask, is this worth making an offer? Is that
Yeah,
right?
right, basically, sure, let's go
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, so we'll go there, right? Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
Okay. So we already answered all lots are buildable, right? Now we gotta have, kind of have a conversation on scope. Okay,
Real,
right? Real life conversation. It's never a charge. Okay, somebody coming to our office and needing help, it's not a charge. Even a point in the right direction. Hey, I'm in the middle of a project. We don't say, yeah, but you're not with us. That's stupid. Okay. Because they're frustrated already. I need to point them in the right direction. And their current level, can you expect it to go up in frustration level or down? Hopefully I'm pointing them in the right direction. So even if it's just flat, they're probably gonna call me back for help. Okay, so I have another opportunity to help later down the road, hopefully. Let's talk about buildability. Okay, I already answered that question. Every lot's buildable. It's just what are you gonna do with it?
How much are you gonna spend? I mean, because in actuality, a lot of lots are not buildable, so I just have a hard time understanding what you mean by that.
Not meant to. And I get it, because I didn't understand it. I'm not meant to on some things. Like we have a client who wants to build a cave. It's difficult for me to answer that question. Does a jurisdiction support a cave? I don't know. It doesn't speak to it, right? Can I answer the buildability question before we come back to that? Is that
Sure,
okay?
I want buildability.
Right, yeah. Every lot's buildable. You're asking, is this worth making an offer? That's the number one question we get. We get 125 times a day, okay, on average. every lot should be looked at. And some lots just don't meet their scope. So when you have a client who's saying, is this lot buildable? My first question is, have they done a buildability consultation with us? Because we actually go through when they're in that process of shopping on what's important. And really it comes down to three things: budget, location, okay? And then the third thing is hiring us. No, I'm just joking. But I can't answer that question for all pieces of property is a short answer, right? I have to understand their scope first. I have to have a clarifying question in order to do that. Okay, we have something coming out that's called the buildability score. It's patent pending right now. To be able to go online, put in parcel number, and we'll actually pull based on a matrix of information, topography, critical areas, hazards, and then based on your scope that you desire, whether or not this is a 10 for developable easily or a 1 for not developable for your based on your scope. So we're able to answer that question the same way that we answer the site development calculator based on needs. Okay, but I have to know your scope or needs in order to answer that question. Okay, so the original question, forgive me if I'm wrong, is do you provide answers to buildability?
Sure, on the front end, just
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
really rough, broad, general.
Yeah, we do. We provide that in a consultation. We provide that if somebody calls us. But I have to know what they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why that ask an expert button is really important. Just ask.
I got a question.
We're there.
Some of the builders, they'll come out and they'll do further consultation.
Yeah.
Like Armstrong Homes or Garrett.
Yeah.
They'll be like, this 3-acre parcel here is not buildable. Here is kind of buildable. This is what we think. So this could possibly be a good lot for you. So how would you work with that? Like if they did that initial with a builder, or actually how accurate are they? I get a couple questions.
Not.
Yeah,
That's the truth.
yeah.
But from a superintendent, a construction superintendent perspective, I'm looking for, am I able to bring in this 18-wheeler to deliver material? Okay. Do I understand biology, geology, things like that? Have I done it long enough to identify is this a buildable area or not? Maybe based on their experience, but they're not providing any data, whereas a feasibility is designed to provide that data. So that it's not just me saying it, but it's me providing how I came to that conclusion. Okay. Garrett Homes, man, they built a nice home, man. They built a great house. Do I think they should be in feasibility? I don't know. I don't know, maybe on a flat piece of land or an infill lot. But the other thing that it does is it's a bias too. And I hate to say it that way, but they're coming out and they're getting paid to build a house. So you have to take that into consideration. We're third party. I don't care. I'm not earning anything by you building a house or subdividing. I have an opportunity to earn that. But I don't have a bias. You already bought a feasibility from me by the time I delivered one. But you didn't buy the feasibility until I actually provided a summary consultation and said, yes, I think you should move forward with the feasibility. Before I stepped on the property or any of our land use experts stepped on the property, physically inspected it, just like that builder, okay? They're looking for that. The other thing that the builder's looking at that we include in feasibility is access confirmation. Ingress, egress, utility access. Can't build anything until you got it, okay? That's one of the questions for buildability. Right. Yeah.
Are you doing commercials, feasibility too?
I do churches. I do churches because I'm Catholic and I have big guilt issues. Okay.
Not any other lots like parking or constructions?
Yeah, so typically when we run across clients who want to purchase land for commercial purposes,
Yeah.
a lot of them are wanting to have either a construction yard or parking, kind of like what you talked about. And that has more to do with land use category and zoning. So I provide that at no cost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go to the Ask an Expert, say, this is the property. I just want to know what I can do on it.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, we also have a product.
Thank you.
We also have a product called a buildability. Okay. And you can purchase that if you're about to list a piece of property and you want to tell a potential buyer what they can do on that piece of property.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
What's the cost for that?
Is that the first one, Mike?
Yeah.
Right,
1950, it's called the buildability certificate. I'm certifying this is buildable
right.
for these uses.
Is it a nice, like, presentation that we can put into the supplements? So, or what does that look like?
No, my 9-year-old has a crayon. It's good, star, right, or check, like a green check sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you go. Yeah, I did, this is so cool, wide, right? It's graphic, yeah, so it's just like a feasibility, but it says that, and then it says more like, hey, we're certifying for 6 months, this is buildable. Okay, also too, if somebody comes and uses the certificate that the seller has already provided, the amount of money that they spent, the 1950, gets credited to a feasibility for the buyer.
Really cool.
Okay? That, I think that's what I would want. Okay, so I'm doing half of a feasibility and I'm providing it as a buildability certificate. But I don't have any idea of scope for a client, so I can't do a full feasibility, right? And I'm not gonna charge the seller for a feasibility.
Right.
I'll just do buildability. Let's just do buildability. Okay, jurisdiction confirmation, access, due diligence, is it buildable? Setbacks, buffers, critical area, ID, those types of things.
So after you provide, let's say I'm representing the seller and you provide a buildability study, are you able to also provide a ballpark of what it would cost to, say, subdivide the land? The permits, the permits that are not included in that,
I don't know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's difficult. I could provide a density calculation that says what on paper am I allowed to get out of this land, like how many lots? Okay, but then we have paper and then we have reality based on critical areas, infrastructure, all those types of things. Okay, so that's more of a feasibility question. So how do we accomplish what we want? In this conversation, we have a consultation that's completely free and I explain expectations, processes to do that. I say, is that something you're still interested in doing? Yes, and then I communicate that to the referral source, you. And say, yes, they like this, they want to move forward, they have reasonable expectations, they understand they're looking for property, or they already found property, they're ready to make an offer. Moving them forward in the transaction while providing real data. Okay, put my skin out there. I'm not, this isn't just me, yeah. If they pay $32.50 legally, what am I liable for? $32.50. That's the answer. Right, just like a home inspector. But you have home inspectors who are great, and you have home inspectors who are not so great. Okay. So we're in the great category, I will tell you. I mean, we're the #1 feasibility company in the entire world. We're located in Tacoma. That's our headquarters. We have free resources for you and your clients. We want to move ahead. We want to be basically a stop along the way for you. We want an opportunity for you to make money doing something you don't typically do and still attract an audience that allows you to build your network, build your opportunity for income and revenue moving forward. Okay, that's us. Just call and ask. We'll just plug right into your process. Very cool. Any other questions?
Any Zoom people have questions? You guys have been quiet today.
No. Did I answer the buildability question enough for you? Was that? a good answer?
No,
Because you looked like I was you were dissatisfied with my answer.
no, I think it's just giving you the real world. I'll just give you real world ones. We'll go through it that way.
Okay,
To understand the process.
sure.
Yeah.
So it was more of a process question. How do I provide buildability?
Well, sure, like,
Okay.
I go to you and I give you, I'm physically thinking about it a lot that I have. So I give you the information, I say, hey, I want you subdivide and build 4 units in the back. What do I do?
That's a great question.
And then, so then you come back and say to me, yeah, it's doable. And now the next process is to finish the feasibility, pay you the $1,800. And then I say, now I,
For that. right?
well,
Yeah.
and then I pay you the $1,800 and I'm like, okay, cool, let's take it a permit. That applies to the permit. And I say, hey, go ahead and get the permits. I pay for the architect, the survey, the this, the that, and everything else. You're just gonna say, or these are people I recommend. Great, and you get it all the way from me. I mean, it's very simplistic, but yeah.
You can
Pretty
use
much
me
it.
as much as you want to use me.
No, but
right?
I'm just going through a client journey. Like
Client journey,
procedurally, that's how it kind of go.
Yeah, so we are different in that
Oh, no,
we're
that's
putting
cool. I
our
think
butt
it's
on the
cool.
line, right?
Yeah.
We're providing a standard operating procedure for you to try and move the transaction forward. I understand it from your perspective. I'm not just a civil engineer, or structural engineer, or a biologist or geologist, right? So there is value in that. I think there is a value. Now, if you don't think there's value in that, then I'm not, and there are.
No, I think there is, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, but I'm taking it through the client journey.
So, yeah,
And then moving it forward to the end. At the end of the day, you started it, I'd be like, hey, perfect, finish, perfect's out.
yeah, that's typically how it goes, yeah.
Cause that makes life. an
But on a
8700.
subdivision, we're not doing a buildability cert, we're not doing a feasibility, we're doing a land use determination.
Right.
Okay, so before that, you got a client or you got a piece of property, hey, Mike, can we have a conversation about this? Yes, let's schedule a free consultation on this, okay? Then I say the three things, do you want to move forward? Is it in the right place, in the right budget? Answer those three questions. Next step is a physical inspection. I physically go out, or a land use consultant within my company goes out, walks the property. Or if we can't walk the property, we send up a drone, okay? We take a look at it. If it's very forested, drone's not gonna work, doesn't matter. So we're looking at physical attributes of the property. We're also, okay, at that point. Then I'm providing a summary consultation in writing that says, this is the existing physical description that I saw the problem. This is your proposed scope of work that you want to accomplish. Do I feel it's appropriate to move forward and actually pay our company to help? Or the second option is, if I were you, I would be concerned with this, and this is what I would look at if I want to do my own feasibility at that point. So we don't have to get a sale. We're not going out there just to say, hey, you got to use us. We're providing documentation that says, when I move forward, is it worth spending money on a feasibility or land use determination at this point? That's why when you have a client that's under contract, we want to be out on physically on the piece of property within 24 to 48 hours. So we got a time frame to deliver that proposal. If I'm already using 72 hours just to determine whether or not I should actually move forward with the feasibility, you know, that's an issue. Right?
Trey's got a question.
Go ahead, Trey.
Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, hi. I've kind of been in and out here of the Zoom, so forgive me if you have to repeat yourself, but I have a client that has 5 lots. Well, he's almost got him to 5 lots where he's separating him from an existing house. Right now, he needs an engineer or a contractor that's going to bring in all the utilities because the city of Kent won't subdivide off that one house from these 5 lots until he takes it clear to the end. So number one, we need an engineer or a contractor to do this. Plus, he's thinking about building out those 5 lots himself. He's done an awful lot of flipping and some building, but I think that he needs a hand to help him make his decision on whether he wants to manage this project himself or how he wants to handle it, plus needing the contractor to get him to where he can finish it out. So is that something that you could help him with?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can do it in one of 2 ways. I can point him in the right direction, okay? Or I can say, this is a product for you. This is how we do it. And then what ends up happening is the client says, I want to be involved, or I don't want to be involved, or I want to be involved to this rate. And then we adjust the contract so that everybody understands what the heck they're doing and when. And then we just move forward. So if they're in a phase, sounds like they're in a review phase with City of Kent for a preliminary plat approval.
He's toward the end of 2.5 years of sheer hell with the city of Kent.
Yeah.
Had you hired them, you wouldn't have this problem.
Well, I mean, I would like to think they wouldn't have had this problem, but sometimes issues, right? And we're here to move your project forward. We're not here to necessarily be a lawyer and then jurisdiction and say how stupid and wrong they are for wanting this. We're trying to say, okay, this is the correction on the preliminary plat design that you're requesting, and this is why we feel it's not feasible or not possible. And then we're bringing in those experts to talk to someone else, so an engineer to an engineer and say, hey, can we come up with some solution in between, right? So that it's not just a correction that's based on code, it's a correction that's based on existing conditions ready to get this project moving forward. Jurisdictions have a difficult time explaining to clients, our clients, any clients, the process. Right?
Right.
Or preliminary plat. Recon, identify, delineate, affidavit of signature, notice on title. Then do critical area determination. It's the same thing with a plat, actually, in King County. And then now we're going to a design phase and then engineering phase. So we're doing hazards before we're ever getting to design or engineering. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, we do that.
And you have a contractor too that you could recommend or find that would finish it out?
Yeah, so we don't go to Angie's list and say Kent contractor does dirt work and utility.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've kind of been bouncing around at different sites looking for contractors that would do this small project, and they're tough to find.
They are tough to find. Typically, they're booked out too. So do we like, know, and trust? Have we used them before?
Yeah, okay.
That's what we do. And we'll walk somebody through that process.
And Mike, is there kind of a typical booby trap type of a thing that comes up like a lot on these vacant land deals, that some things to kind of brokers can watch out for, even when
Easements.
they're just the easements? are
Yeah,
the biggest.
easements and access, those are the two biggest trips, okay? So we have a place up on Upper Preston Road in Issaquah right now. Client bought this, they do Airbnb out of it, they also want to do a wedding venue. For some reason, their neighbor believes that my client's driveway has been they've been granted an easement on it. And the neighbor is blocking this driveway right now from her landscaper trying to go in and out. That's a civil issue. So we call the police, right? We're not calling code enforcement or anything like that. So then these people start doing code violation notifications of the county, which are not there. So they're slowing this down. They're blocking this neighbor's access, all those types of things. So yeah, access, ingress, egress, utilities. So we're verifying that, and then easements. We run across in Snohomish County a fair amount that lots have not been legally created.
Oh, wow.
And that's even after.
Which county?
Snohomish.
In Snohomish.
It's, yeah, further north you go along that, the more that tends to happen. And the reason it tends to happen is in short, is a lot of times they would just draw on a napkin their property, and then they would draw another square, and then they would say, I'm giving this square to XYZ. And then they would go into the county or jurisdiction and say, here you go. Okay, or they would have a lawyer draw that up, but they would never have it recorded. Just like an easement that's never been recorded. Builders, I love builders, but here's the number one trick they like to use, and you may have experienced this. Neighbor, in order for me to get a plat, I need you to give me an easement, okay? Here's the documents. I will pay you. Here's your check for $35,000. I sign, you sign, this is your stuff. Then they don't tell that person to go ahead and get that recorded. So they get their plat because they have a document that the neighbor signed, but it's not recorded. Jurisdiction is not requiring them to have it recorded. The assessor might require that, but remember, I'm not talking to the assessor if I'm doing a review on a plat. That's after the fact. Do I have final plat approval? Have I done everything, all the conditions to make it approved for final? That's what they're working on. Then we go to the assessor and we record it. And then they give us your parcels, right? They didn't look to see if I actually fulfilled the requirement of recording that easement in order to get the plat. It sucks. There's no way around it. It stinks. We get that all the time. Okay, neighbors, I have an easement. No, you don't. Is it recorded? No. Well, I don't know. Well, title can't find it. I can't find it. People down at recording use their magic wand. They can't find it. Right? Is it something that's online, or is it before 1976 or 1980 where it's now archived? City of Eatonville. They have a shed in the back where all of the documents are archived. I'm telling you, if somebody knew where that shed is, there are enough people out there pissed off that they should light that thing on fire. If they're really pissed, that's what they should do. So those are kind of the scary stuff. The other thing is the cities, Snohomish County, we just talked quickly
Yeah.
about that. If you didn't do a feasibility, you didn't find out so we run across this. Here's the scenario. You didn't find out that this wasn't legally created and you still bought it. What recourse do you have? You have what's called innocent purchaser in some instances. Okay, so it's just like if I need to rezone something, I have these things that I have to suffice before I can claim innocent purchaser. So we can help somebody through that process. When I first started the company and I ran across a legal lot creation issue, I didn't know how to tell the client, I want you to do an innocent purchaser without telling them to do an innocent purchaser. Because if I came to them and said, this is an innocent purchaser, please purchase this lot, and you're still qualified to do that, then they would not be considered an innocent purchaser. So did I just ghost them? How did to this day, I don't know how to handle the issue other than to write a feasibility accurately and explain, now you're not an innocent purchaser. Sorry. They can do what they want with it at that point. Okay, they can say I had a feasibility or not. I'm still providing the service that I promised that I was paid to provide. We have Mercer Island. Do we have time for one more story?
Sure.
Okay, Mercer Island. I love rich people. They argue over the stupidest stuff though, okay? I hope to be rich one. I hope I have plenty of money to argue. But we have issues with boundaries, okay? Building two homes right next to each other. One property owner says to the contractor, I want you to build this fence right here. I had a surveyor come out, they marked the line. Build it right here. The neighbor, after it's all built, remember concrete, iron, beautiful fence. I mean, it's huge, beautiful fence. They must have spent $750,000 on this fence. I'm not kidding. Neighbor comes out and says, you're on my property, tear it down. No, I put this fence on the boundary. Yeah, I know, it's on my property. They should have just moved one more inch inside. Or inside their boundary. 1 inch, just 1 inch could have saved them all of that. So they paid to have that fence demolished and moved. They moved it 1 foot to make sure. Okay, but they spent on these two people were lawyers, both sides. They hired additional lawyers to fight their battle, right? 1.5 years of inner fighting, $750,000 of known costs just to move the fence and rebuild it, okay? Just come on, guys. Like, what do we do in boundary issues? We go to the neighbor and we say, hey, I think we got a boundary issue. I'm not mad. I'm not pissed. I'm not asking you to tear anything down, okay? But I want to get a record of survey that shows where this existing structure is and that protects you and protects me and says that I know about it and I'm okay with it. Okay, and it's gonna follow the land, it's not gonna follow me, so if I die or anything like that, right? So these kind of issues come up all the time, and boundary disputes. Yeah, okay. So, just.
I've seen
so
one
funny.
for a shed or a big, like shop.
I had this.
The neighbor granted me permission and then they wrote it on
Yeah.
a piece of paper. Oh,
Did you have it recorded?
Yeah, of course not.
No, of course not, just like the builder didn't tell you to have it recorded.
I had that
I
issue
see
this
that.
summer.
Yeah, it's
Except
a,
mine was friendly, but I ended up getting my own survey because I didn't believe the other surveyor.
Oh,
So I got my other survey and he was right, but I ended up getting land on my back right corner because of it.
can I talk about survey for just one moment? I can talk a lot about this, and I know if you gotta go, that's
We
good,
got
I want you to do. your
10
stuff,
minutes, so
okay?
we're good.
Professionally licensed surveyors, PLS, okay? When you see a rebar and it has PLS number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is an individual professional licensed surveyor. They're saying that is a corner or a boundary, okay? If your client is asking, hey, I want to know where I should build my fence, I need a boundary identified, okay? RCW 5809. Okay, that is the law that tells a surveyor whether or not they have to do what's called an ROS, a record of survey. Okay, there are a few reasons that I don't have to do a record of survey if I'm a PLS. If it already has a record of survey, that's pretty obvious, right? I'm working for the government, don't have to have a record of survey. Okay,
What's that RCW again?
5809. I had a professional licensed surveyor coach me. I went and worked for a civil engineering, a survey company, and a structural engineering company for 3 years to get to this point. Okay, so it's not, I'm not just talking this talk, guys. I really do care. Okay. So what's my point? If you're providing at one boundary, the Pythagorean theorem tells me a square plus b square equals c square. I have to find all the other corners before, in order to find this. So that's why when you call up a surveyor, that's why one's $8,000 to do this and one's $800 to do this, okay? Do they already have a record of survey? Do they already have rebar in the ground? If they're gonna put rebar in the ground and draw a line, they have to have a record of survey if they haven't already had it. That's why it's $8,000. They're putting their license on the line. Do you need that? Oh, you don't need that. They can do the Pythagorean theorem and they can tell you this is the boundary and they can tell you to put something in the ground. However, it's not a record of survey, so they don't already have one and your neighbor says, hey, you're on my property, you're gonna have a record of survey. Okay, so you're kind of stuck in this position, but it's important to understand why I need a record of survey, what a record of survey does, and the liabilities behind it and the benefits too. Okay, people aren't across that boundary line dispute all the time. Anybody have any questions about anything I just talked about? Anything, any specific thing that's going on in a transaction? It's driving you absolutely insane. You want to pound your head into the wall?
Client that, has 5-acre property.
Yeah.
Bought it already knowing that it has, some wetlands, has a creek going through.
Mhm.
And that the previous owner had put in machinery to grind blackberry bushes.
Yeah.
So it got slapped with really nasty fine from the county.
Yeah.
So-
Jerry Brenzel is her name. She's code enforcement in King County. I
this
love
was
Jerry.
Snohomish,
Is it Snohomish?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if they know how to read.
Snohomish.
I-
And so now, 3 years, so she had to sign that, she was gonna agree to do this process that the county was saying to bring the property back to
Compliance.
compliance.
Yep.
So now the 3 years is coming up, but now the county is slapping her with, no, now you need to hand for all of these bushes,
Handful?
blackberry bushes and bring it up to normality, and whatever normality is gray area. And so it's gonna, they're telling her it's gonna cost her 38 grand. So she's like, I don't have 38 grand, what am I supposed to do? So now she's like, well, should I subdivide so I can get some money to pay for that?
Well, how are you gonna spend the money to get the money, right? Worst mistake I ever made starting a company was I borrowed money to try and get out of borrowing more money. So awful. It's like, I can't pay my bills, so I'm gonna go get a loan. Okay, she doesn't have 30 grand. How much does she think it's gonna cost to subdivide?
She doesn't have a clue.
45, 50 grand, pretty simple. That's on average. Okay, it's not unless it's a large lot subdivision. But we just have a survey, we have meets and bounds, I mean, they describe legally, what is this new piece of property? Goes to the county, it's typically done in very rural areas. County says, oh, good, engineer says, oh, good, environment says. Well, we need a compliance issue, we're kind of helping these folks along the way. This sounds like someone, and forgive me if I'm wrong, that had 3 years to do something and understood what they needed to do within 3 years. Is that right?
Have been doing it. She had
And
to
have been.
hire a special landscaper and somebody to come in every so many months and plant 100 trees and plant all of this. She's been doing that.
And have they documented that with the county? Have they
Yes.
emailed and said this?
Yes.
Okay, and the county is saying you're still not within compliance, okay? And you still have this and this and this to do yet,
Yeah.
right?
That's messed up.
Yeah, that is messed up. That code enforcement officer, in my humble opinion, based on the information that you just described, should not be doing this to that person. Right? But what do we do with this information? Typically, you need a third party who has no emotional ties either way to go to their boss and say, hey, we're working on this. Is there any way I can get a 12-month extension on this? Because typically what happens within code enforcement is they're penalizing you as you go.
Yeah, they were.
Okay, so to try and incentivize you to do things. And then at the end, you say, I don't have money to pay for this, but I'm in compliance now, or I'm damn near close to compliance. Is there anything you can, try and get rid of some of the penalties? Because, and if you did it and you didn't know you weren't supposed to, grade and clear or pull these things, or you were working within a buffer, the code enforcement officer has the right to pull out all the penalties. They can do that. Okay, but you have to kiss their kid and you have to tell them they're smart, all these types of things, right? You just have to know the law better than they do in most cases. So that's a simple thing, right? Yeah, so I'm sorry that's happening. Please have them go on our website, ask an expert. We can go in and consult them on how to do it. And if they need help, we can present a proposal for them to do that, and the costs associated. I really don't want to charge them if they can't afford something else. So I'll try and point them in the right direction. Those are great questions, just like that, yeah. Foresting, if under 5,000 square feet, linear feet of timber, I don't need a forest permit, okay? Over 500 square feet of grading and clearing, I need a grading and clearing permit. These questions we answer every single day. King County has brochures they get asked so many times every day that they have a brochure. We can send a brochure and explain it to somebody. We can explain buffers and setbacks, what they are, what you can do within those buffers and setbacks. If you want to get a variance or an exception, the process to get that, we can explain those types of things. So BLAs, boundary line adjustments, we do those all the time. I do short plats. I do not do plats. Plats over 9 lots, I do not do. It's a different animal, a different customer, typically a corporate customer. Okay, they don't need us. We're there for an individual.
Do you have specific lenders that you would recommend that can do loans, like you're saying, on separate from a construction loan? Just a
Like a
loan,
land
Just a
loan.
land
a
loan.
vacant land loan, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the. We have a few, yeah, it's just based on the area. So like Pierce County, we'll use Evergreen. Okay. We also use Sound Community Bank. And then if you go on USDA website, they have a whole list of people too. And you have to actually go through the USDA to get approved in order to be one of their.
Go to the USDA site.
Yeah, go to USDA and it should say raw land loan. And you click on that, it says find a lender, click on that. Okay. All those folks that are on there, I'm not saying they're all good, I'm not endorsing them all, but those are good resources. And you guys are professionals, you know how to spot a guy a mile or person a mile away that may not be telling you the entire truth. Right? Maybe omitting things, just trying an application. Been there, done that, I was young. Any other questions? Is this helpful to anybody?
Yeah, it was great.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for having
Awesome.
me. Please, we have a 1-800 number on the website.
Yep.
We have
Do a flyer.
flyers, we can have PDFs of our flyers of what we do. Feel free to use those flyers to leverage, gain new relationships, to gain new opportunities to talk to clients about land maybe you hadn't previously done. It's a good opportunity. I'll be around for a little while. If you have any questions.
All right.
A hard question. That's tough.